So we'll start our class. In the last class, we had discussed about the digestion and absorption of carbohydrate, then how there is some disturbances going on. So we'll today start glycolysis. Already we know how carbohydrates are being absorbed and from the intestine, then goes to portal circulation, and then goes to liver, and from liver takes the glucose, and then it excessive glucose is there after food postprandial, then it can store in the form of glycogen. Otherwise, this glucose can go to systemic circulation for consumption by various tissues, because glucose is the most important common fuel for all our body cells. In fact, our almost all cells of the tissues of our body, they have at least some requirement of glucose. In brain, it is substantial. Brain is dependent mostly on glucose, and except a prolonged fasting stage where about 20% supply can be made by ketone bodies. Otherwise, it is primarily dependent on glucose for its sources of energy. RBC is completely dependent on glucose for its energy. So this glycolysis, glucose being the most important fuel for energy for the cells. It is the and this energy we get by glycolysis, followed by in your TCA cycle and complete oxidation in the respiratory chain, leading to synthesis of ATP. Now, this we first glycolysis is the definition we had seen last time. It is the production of or pyruvate or lactate in the cytosol, depending upon the availability of oxygen and electron transport chain. So oxidation of glucose to pyruvate or lactate with production by this is otherwise called Embeden-Meyerhof pathway. So it could be, this is the unique pathway which can occur both aerobically and anaerobically. Anaerobically means other pathways, all they require oxygen. However, this is the only pathway which can occur in anaerobically. That means it is without the presence of adequate oxygen, this path can take place and energy can be produced by this glycolytic pathway. So this will see how glycolytic pathway, anaerobic pathway, what will happen, and aerobic pathway, what is the end product. Now, the glycolysis is the principal route for metabolism of glucose, fructose, galactose, and other carbohydrates also. The ability of glycolysis to produce ATP in the absence of oxygen is important because it allows skeletal muscles to perform at high level of workout, even if oxygen supply is insufficient, and allows tissue to survive anoxic episodes. This is the importance of anaerobic glycolysis. Skeletal muscles can work with maximum output, even if in the oxygen supply is not adequate. However, heart muscle is adapted to aerobic performance, have relatively low glycolytic activity, and poor survival under ischemic condition. Heart can use all type of fuels, including other glucose and other amino acids, lactate, ketone bodies. All energy producing fuels are used by heart. It is mostly aerobic, and glycolysis is poorly heart muscle is poor glycolytic activity is there. So its survival in your ischemia is poor for heart muscles. Now, uh, some if glycolytic pathway enzymes are deficient, so what will happen? Like pyruvate kinase, we'll discuss pyruvate kinase. We can have hemolytic anemias, or it can uh, PFK1 phosphofructokinase 1 deficiency in muscles can lead to EG fatigue. In cancer cells also it has been seen glycolysis proceeds in a high rate, producing more of lactate. So lactate and this lactate can be used for neoglucogenesis, and it is a energy requiring process. So energy requiring means metabolism will be increased. So in cancer cachexia, that is called cancer cachexia, later stages of cancer, they thin and muscles atrophy and all these things takes place. So that is due to cancer cell rapidly growing tissues, they are producing more of glycolytic, they are anaerobic glycolysis and leading to more production of lactate. This lactate can be have to be converted back to glucose by neoglucogenesis, and it results in hyper metabolism, because neoglucogen is energy required. It energy has to be there. So more energy means more metabolism has to take place. So that can lead to cancer cachexia. Also lactic acidosis. There is a condition called lactic acidosis also that results from various causes including pyruvate dehydrogenase deficiency. We'll discuss in details later on. So now let us come to the steps of your glycolytic pathway. So in this, this is a given in your Harper book. This is structure of glucose 6 carbon. The first enzyme, first step is the hexokinase or glucokinase. Glucokinase is present in liver. Hexokinase is present in almost all tissues. So it is a kinase enzyme. It requires ATP, gets converted to ADP, and we get glucose 6-phosphate. That means in this glucose molecule, the 6th carbon phosphate is being added. So glucose 6-phosphate, and this is a first step is irreversible. Irreversible steps. Other steps are, there are 3 irreversible steps in the whole pathway, and this is the first step is irreversible one. And hexokinase is present in almost all tissues. Glucokinase is present in your liver and beta cell of pancreas, which has got low K. Hexokinase has low Km per glucose, whereas glucokinase has got a high Km. So at the low level of high, hexokinase has a high affinity. That means at lower level of glucose also it can act maximally and produce glucose 6-phosphate. But a glucokinase needs higher level. It is low Km, higher level of glucose to be effectively working or forming the product. So usually glucokinase is present in the liver, gets activated after in the postprandial. So when portal circulation brings a large amount of glucose after being absorbed from the intestine, that will lead to your glucose activation, and glucokinase can now your phosphorylate the glucose to glucose 6-phosphate, and it can deal with a large amount of glucose brought by the portal circulation, and all of them can be converted to glucose 6-phosphate. And another difference is hexokinase, these are isoenzymes. Glucokinase difference is hexokinase is inhibited by the product. Glucose 6-phosphate can inhibit the hexokinase, but glucokinase is not inhibited. So these are the differences between hexokinase and glucokinase. I had some, yes, this is the table showing hexokinase difference. Affinity for glucose, glucokinase is low, Km value high. Affinity is high, Km value is low for hexokinase. Specificity, glucokinase is only substrate is glucose. Here it is other sugars are also, other hexokinase are the substrate. Liver cell and pancreatic cell location, liver cell and beta cell of pancreas. Here it is all tissues. Insulin can activate the glucokinase, whereas hexokinase is not. It is a constitutive enzyme, expression of the enzyme. Action of glucose 6-phosphate not affected. That means feedback inhibition. It is not. There is no feedback inhibition here. Inhibited. Hexokinase is inhibited by the product. So net effect, what happens? Removes glucose from blood following meal, and this is maintain blood glucose concentration. That means in lower glucose concentration also it can act, and glycolysis can continue. Now in the second step, in fact this glucose 6-phosphate is at the junction of many pathways, like glycogen can be converted to glucose 1-phosphate, then glucose 6-phosphate. So this is a pathway of glycogenolysis. Then a glucose 6-phosphate can go towards HMP pathway, hexose monophosphate pathway, that we will see, hexose monophosphate pathway. Then glucose 6-phosphate can go towards glucose formation in the process of neoglucogenesis. Wherever there is irreversible steps are there are corresponding different enzyme for the reverse reaction, because glucose glycolysis share the same pathway with neoglucogenesis. The same pathway can be shared for the another metabolic pathway called neoglucogenesis, which is synthesis of glucose from non-protein substances, non-glucose, non-carbohydrate substances. Neoglucogenesis is an important pathway to maintain blood glucose level during intervening period. That means when we don't take anything in between, our blood glucose has to be maintained. So that is maintained by blood neoglucogenesis. So glucose 6-phosphate is a junction of many different pathways. Now, in the talking of glycolysis, and the glycolytic next step is glucose 6-phosphate is converted to fructose 6-phosphate. It is a aldehyde ketoisomerase. So glucose 6-phosphate is converted to fructose 6-phosphate. So this is a simple irreversible reaction. Now next, second important, this third reaction is important irreversible pathway, and there is another kinase, phosphofructokinase. This is a fructose 6-phosphate is a phosphofructose. So this substrate is being again phosphate is added with the help of enzyme kinase, and ATP is converted to ADP, and we are getting fructose 1,6-bisphosphate. Fructose 1,6-bisphosphate, it is a kinase, and it is a irreversible step. So we have for neoglucogenesis, we have got a different enzyme to overcome this. For neoglucogenesis, this step is reversible, so there is no separate enzyme is required for when the reverse pathway is there. For neoglucogenesis, we'll discuss in detail. For during neoglucogenesis, glucose 6-phosphate is the corresponding enzyme for forward reaction. This is backward reaction. Neoglucogenesis is the process where like lactate or pyruvate can be converted back to glucose or amino acid or glycerol, like that, non-carbohydrate substances. So the irreversible step have got extra enzymes, whereas reversible step they do not require any. The same enzyme will do the reaction, both sides. Now fructokinase has converted fructose 6-phosphate to fructose 1,6-bisphosphate, and this is called committed step of glycolysis. That means once this enzyme has acted, now fructose 1,6-bisphosphate has been formed. It is committed to glycolysis. No other path, it can enter any other pathway. Whereas this first irreversible pathway, glucose 6-phosphate is formed, it is not the committed step. It can enter into any other pathway, like HMP pathway or uronic acid pathway, or your glycogen synthesis pathway, like that. Many pathways are available for glucose 6-phosphate to enter. Whereas this is the committed step of glycolysis, most important step. This is the regulatory step for glycolysis also. It is regulated allosterically by positive regulator, negative regulator. So this is first fructokinase is one of the important enzyme. It is the committed step. The second irreversible steps of glycolysis. Now in the next year, fourth step, the fructose 1,6-bisphosphate. Why it is called bisphosphate, not diphosphate? The phosphates are attached to two different carbon atoms. One first carbon and sixth carbon. Fructose 1,6-bisphosphate. Now an aldolase enzyme acts in the fourth step. Aldolase enzyme acts on this 6-carbon compound to produce two 3-carbon molecules, dihydroxyacetone phosphate and glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. Dihydroxyacetone phosphate and glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. The upper portion, this has gone formation of dihydroxyacetone phosphate. The lower portion has gone, it has a cleavage of the in the middle 3-carbon aldolase cleaves the lyase. It is a type of lyase. It cleaves the molecule into two fragments, three carbon fragments, dihydroxyacetone phosphate and glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. Now this they are also can be interconverted. That means like here it was phosphohexoisomerase, glucose to fructose. This is also keto aldo-keto isomerization. So triose phosphate isomerase can convert dihydroxyacetone phosphate to glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. This is a keto isomer. This is the aldo isomer. So triose phosphate isomerase can form dihydroxyacetone phosphate to glyceraldehyde 3-phosphates. So at this end of the fourth step, this is the fifth enzyme. So we are getting two molecules of glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. We are getting two molecules of glyceraldehyde. So this is in fact aldolase A. There is another enzyme aldolase B, which acts on fructose 1-phosphate. In the fructose metabolism, we will see aldolase B, that will be fructose 1,6-1-phosphate to dihydroxyacetone phosphate and glyceraldehyde only there, because there is only one phosphate. So that we will see in the fructose metabolism. Aldolase B. Here it is aldolase A. So now comes the from this these steps are 2 3-carbon sugar molecules per glucose. Here one glucose, this is one molecules. Here it has become 2 molecules now. So now 2 molecules of glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate will be acted upon by enzyme glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate dehydrogenase to form 1,3-bisphosphoglycerate. 1,3-bisphosphoglycerate. This requires NAD gets reduced to NADH. NAD gets reduced to NADH. PI molecules also used and gets phosphorylated to bisphosphate. Here only one phosphate was there. Now the PI molecule along with the glycerol 3-phosphate dehydrogenase enzyme, which reduces NAD to NADH, bisphosphoglycerate is formed. So this is a high energy compound and it can synthesize ATP at the substrate level. We have seen ATP mostly are used synthesized in the electron transport chain of mitochondria from the this reducing equivalent NADH FADH2 from the TCA cycle. They donate their electron to the first component ETC, electron transport chain. They get converted back to oxidized NAD or FAD, and during that movement of electron in the electron transport chain, ATP is formed. That is at the electron oxidative phosphorylation, oxidation and phosphorylation. But here in the glycolysis, we can synthesize ATP without the help of electron transport chain or oxygen, and that is called substrate level phosphorylation. So bis phosphoglycerate, 1,3-bis phosphoglycerate can give rise to 3-phosphoglycerate with the synthesis of ATP at the substrate level. This glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate enzyme is consists of 4 molecules of 4 multi-subunit 4 monomers, each monomer containing your SH group of cysteine. Many cysteines are residual. The active site is also a cysteine molecule, and of the enzyme contains cysteine molecule. And this enzyme is inhibited, SH group can be inhibited by iodoacetate. Inhibitor is iodoacetate. And this PI molecule also can be competitively inhibited by arsenate. Arsenate two valency are there, pentavalent or trivalent. So arsenate pentavalent and this phosphate pentavalent. So arsenate poisoning also can inhibit this step. It can enter into the and it is taken up by during the reaction of enzyme glyceraldehyde phosphate dehydrogenase. In place of phosphate, it will arsenate can be taken up and it will form 1 arseno 3-phosphoglycerate. In place of phosphate, if inorganic phosphate arsenate is used, then 1 arseno 3-phosphoglycerate will be formed, and which will definitely convert it to 3-phosphoglycerate. There is hydrolysis of the arsenic group. Arsenic will be released, but there is no production of ATP. So arsenate poisoning, arsenate acts as a so-called uncoupler of the substrate level phosphorylation. If arsenate is there in place of phosphate, there won't be any ATP formation, because arsenate first it will form 1 arseno 3-phosphoglycerate, which will be spontaneously hydrolyzed. Arsenate will be removed and converted to 3-phosphoglycerate. And the SH group of this enzyme dehydrogenase is inhibited by iodoacetate also. So this is the importance of, and this is the only reaction which requires NAD plus converted to NADH. So now in the 3-phosphoglycerate can be converted to 2-phosphoglycerate by mutase, phosphoglyceromutase enzyme. And now this there is change of phosphate position. Now this enolase, and the next enzyme is the enolase, which a water molecule is removed and it gets converted to phosphoenol pyruvate. Phosphoenol pyruvate can be formed from 2-phosphoglycerate. So one OH and H from this place, OH and H, so water molecule is removed and we will get a phosphoenol pyruvate. And this is also a high energy compound, and it can give another molecule of ATP at the substrate level by the enzyme pyruvate kinase. Pyruvate kinase, so which converts phosphoenol pyruvate to pyruvate. Okay, so and this significance of this enolase is it is also can be inhibited by fluoride ion, fluoride, which is used for collecting blood for sugar estimation. The gray vial for sugar contains an anticoagulant and fluoride ion along with it, so that even if there is a time lag between blood collection for sugar estimation and for your sugar estimation and collection and proper estimation by the machine, if there is a lag of 2 to 3 hours, usually that happens in big hospitals. So during that time, RBC should not use all the glucose of the plasma, thereby decreasing the glucose level. Will get a falsely low reading of glucose if there is no fluoride. If this glycolysis, because RBC is totally dependent on glycolysis for its energy purpose. So once we are collecting and living for 2 to 3 hours, all the RBCs in the blood sample, they will start using the glucose and they can use up, and there will be low reading of glucose. Now pyruvate is being formed then what is anaerobic glycolysis? This ethyl pyruvate, if oxygen is there along with the electron transport chain, then most of the pyruvate will enter into the mitochondria, because for complete oxidation of glucose, it has to go into TCA cycle, then the as acetyl CoA, and it will enter TCA cycle. After that, it will the NADH or FADH2 produced. They will donate their electron to the respiratory chain, and during the flow of electron in the respiratory chain, the phosphorylation is coupled, oxidative phosphorylation, so ATP will be synthesized for complete oxidation of glucose. But if there is, like RBC doesn't contain mitochondria, so there is no electron transport chain. So even if oxygen is there, no electron transport chain, so it cannot utilize oxygen. So in the absence of oxygen or a rapidly contracting muscle, what happens is the muscle is contracting rapidly and there is relative anoxia. Relative anoxia means the blood the hemoglobin which is bringing oxygen is not able to supply the demand of the contracting muscle, ATP demand. So in that condition also your this anaerobic pathway will take place. That is, what happens is normally NADH in the cytosol should cross the mitochondrial membrane and get donates the electron to gets converted back to NAD by donating electron to the respiratory chain. There are two subtle pathways. glycosphosphate shuttle and malate shuttle, which carry NADH from cytosol to the electron transport chain. But when there is no electron transport chain like RBC, or there is no oxygen like rapidly contracting muscle, then what will happen is your NADH cannot donate the electron, NAD cannot be reformed. NAD cannot be reformed. If NAD is not reformed, glycolysis cycle will not continue. So in the anoxic condition or in the RBC, pyruvate gets converted to lactate by using NADH. This NADH form, instead of going to the electron transport chain in the anoxic condition, it will convert NADH, pyruvate will be converted to lactate by with the help of NADH, and NAD is regenerated. The next step is pyruvate gets converted to lactate. Enzyme is lactate dehydrogenase, and we had seen in the earlier probably in one of the cycle here. If pyruvate is there is no oxygen able skeletal muscles or there is no ETC, this NADH in the glyceride 3 phosphate produced will convert the pyruvate to lactate, and it will regenerate the NAD. So this NAD again can continue the glycolytic pathway because the coenzymes are present in small amounts. Like enzymes are also present in small amount, coenzymes are also present in small amounts. So if NAD gets converted to NADH, it has to be NAD has to be regenerated to continue the reaction of glycerol 3 phosphate dehydrogenase. So in the anaerobic condition, NADH formed are converted to NAD by conversion of pyruvate to lactate. So in the anaerobic condition, the end product is always lactate, whereas in the aerobic condition, that means when oxygen and electron transfer are available, it will pyruvate is the end product, and it will now enter into the mitochondria for further oxidation, complete oxidation. So LDH it has got isoenzymes. I don't know, in the enzyme chapter you have seen the significance of LDH isoenzymes and their clinical. Usually LDH enzyme isoenzymes are there. They are different from different tissues. LDH1 is present in the heart muscle, LDH5 is present in the skeletal muscle, then 2, 3, 4, and there are 5 isoenzymes of LDH. Because they have got different their physical and chemical properties. They carry the same reaction, but the properties, their substrate affinity and the Km value and all these are different for in different tissues. That is according to their need of the tissue. So now comes the, so here salient features was glucose, pyruvate or lactate are produced almost all tissues and cells. It is occurs in the cytoplasm and catabolic in nature that we have seen. Now we have seen that lactate is produced not only is always produced in the RBC, and other tissues also substantial amount of anaerobic glycolysis occurs, like brain, GI tract, renal medulla, retina, and skin. These are the tissues where substantial amount of anaerobic glycolysis occurs. And also increased so it will produce lactate. Also, increased lactate production occurs in septic shock. Many cancers. Septic shock also produces more of lactate, or many cancers also tumor tissues, they produce lactate. So what is the fate of lactate? Lactate is taken up by many tissues. For like heart can take up lactate for energy purpose. Liver and kidney can take up your lactate, and they with the help of neoglucogenesis, glucose can be synthesized. If it is not used for energy purpose, lactate can form glucose. This is by the process of neoglucogenesis. During vigorous exercise or septic shock or cancer cachexia, there is the person takes up oxygen, respiration rate increases. That is due to oxygen debt. Oxygen debt is due to, in the vigorous exercise or shock, more production of lactate. More production of lactate means lactate has to convert to glucose by liver and kidney. So it is a neoglucogenesis process, which is an energy requiring process. That means energy will come from ATP electron transport chain. So metabolism has to increase to provide energy. So increased metabolism occurs. So increased oxygen consumption, leading to increase in the rate of respiration, and that is called oxygen debt. After occurs during vigorous exercise. Just after exercise, for some time we take on heavy breathing, rapid and heavy breathing takes place because of to convert the all of the lactate to glucose, or which requires energy, and that has to be come from your increase in metabolism or ATP production in the electron transport chain. Now, before energy production, roughly we will calculate at the end of TCA cycle. Here one can see we have spent 2 ATPs in the early part of the glycolytic pathway. In the first and third, 2 ATP molecules have been spent. And at the substrate level, we have produced 2 here and 2 in the pyruvate kinase, 2 in the phosphoglycerol kinase. So 4 ATPs had been, because these are 2 molecules of 3 carbon sugar. So it is 4 ATPs are produced, 2 ATPs are used. And this NADH, if it is NADH can cross the mitochondrial membrane and give 2.5 2.5 ATPs. So in the respiratory chain, 5 ATPs from 2 NADH. At the substrate level, 4 ATPs, total 9 ATPs, but 2 are utilized. So aerobic condition for cytosolic part, glycolysis part, is 7 ATPs are produced. In anaerobic condition, because there is no NADH left, it has been used for regeneration of NAD. So total 4 are formed and 2 are utilized. So net 2 ATP. This is 7 ATP plus pyruvate. In the aerobic end product is pyruvate plus 7 ATP. Anaerobic end product is lactate plus 2 ATP. Now pyruvate can be next oxidized to acetyl-CoA in the mitochondria, then enter TCA cycle, then more NAD, FADs will be formed, that will enter TCA cycle, and more energy will be produced. So anaerobic, although it survives some anoxic episodes like skeletal muscles or RBC, but they have to pay price by producing low ATP, and that's why for the same amount of energy, more and more glucose has to be used. Now coming to regulation of this as I was telling, there are three irreversible non-equilibrium steps. So these three could be the regulatory step of glycolysis. And neoglucogenesis, we have got three different enzymes, three or four different enzymes to overcome these three irreversible reactions. As I was telling, the first enzyme hexokinase can be regulated by glucose 6-phosphate allosterically feedback inhibition type reaction. But the most important regulatory step is that this is PFK1 phosphofructokinase. There are two types, 1 and 2. We'll see in the neoglucogenesis what is 2. Phosphofructokinase 2 will produce fructose 2,6-bisphosphate. Phosphofructokinase 1 will produce fructose 1,6-bisphosphate. So this regulatory step allosterically is regulated by ATP is a substrate also, and ATP is a inhibitor also of this enzyme. When adequate amount of ATP is there in the cell, it will inhibit the phosphofructokinase. And citrate molecule, you'll see pyruvate will enter into the mitochondria, and the first Tricia cycle intermediate is citrate. Citrate plenty means adequate amount of energy in the cell is there. So citrate also inhibits phosphofructokinase. These are negative allosteric inhibitors, allosteric modifiers rather. And this enzyme is also positively modified by AMP. Whenever the energy level of the cell is decreases, that means ATP is going to ADP. Two ADP can form ATP and AMP. So one ATP will be formed, but AMP will also be formed. So AMP level will rise. That is indicator of low energy, and that will activate phosphofructokinase. That will activate phosphofructokinase enzyme. And PFK2 product, that is phosphofructose 2,6-bisphosphate, is another positive modulator of PFK, phosphofructokinase. That we will discuss in the neoglucogenesis. More discussion will be there in the neoglucogenesis. So more committed step and the regulatory step is phosphofructokinase. This another irreversible is pyruvate kinase, and this can be regulated by allosteric and covalent modification. Allosterically, it is fructose 1,6-bisphosphate stimulates pyruvate kinase, positive modulator. Phosphorus 1,6-bisphosphate stimulates pyruvate kinase. ATP inhibits pyruvate kinase. ATP negative. Like here, phosphorus ATP here also acts as a negative. And glucagon in the fasting level of fasting condition, glucagon will rise. That will increase the cyclic AMP. So cyclic AMP dependent protein kinase, they will phosphorylate the pyruvate kinase and it makes inactive. Pyruvate kinase can be both allosterically and covalent modification. That means phosphorylation, dephosphorylation. It can be regulated. So your glucagon, when fasting is there, glycolysis, instead of glycolysis, we want to go for gluconeogenesis. So in that condition, pyruvate kinase will be inactive. That means cyclic AMP dependent protein kinase, they will phosphorate the enzyme and it becomes inactive. So this is roughly about the few regulation of glycolytic pathway. Now let us move to the next step. Importance, this is we already discussed. This only pathway in all cells of the body, only source of energy in RBC, in strenuous exercise, major source of energy, allows to survive anoxic episodes, deficiency of enzyme glycolysis like pyruvate kinase leads to hemolytic anemias. Okay, RBC pyruvate kinase is deficient, then it can because substrate level phosphorylation is there, pyruvate kinase is not there, then there will be no ATP production. So less energy hemolytic anemia will be there. Preliminary steps of complete glucose oxidation, like for in aerobic condition, complete oxidation occurs and it has to go through your glycolytic pathway. Reversible steps are used for gluconeogenesis, that we will discuss. The same reversible reactions are used for gluconeogenesis. Irreversible reactions, we have got different enzymes. Provided carbon skeleton synthesis of non-essential amino acids and glycerol part of fat. So here we can synthesize non-essential amino acids also, like serine, glycine, others can be produced by the intermediates of the glycolytic pathway, or glycerol can be formed from these intermediates. Now another important significance in the RBC is there is 2,3-bisphosphoglycerate pathway, or there is called Rapaport labeling cycle. We know hemoglobin, binding of oxygen to hemoglobin is dependent on the presence of 2,3-bisphosphoglycerate, and RBC must have adequate amount of 2,3-bisphosphoglycerate, and RBC is dependent on glycolysis only. So in the glycolytic pathway, there is a cycle or bypass way is there. That is 1,3 after glycerol phosphate dehydrogenase, where we are forming 1,3-bisphosphoglycerate that can be converted to 2,3-bisphosphoglycerate by the enzyme bisphosphoglycerate mutase, and this will help in the delivery of oxygen. In the presence of hemoglobin, it will help in the delivery of oxygen to the tissues, and this again can be converted back to 3-phosphoglycerate by 2,3-bisphosphatase, removal of phosphatase there. So what is happening? It is bypassing the first substrate level of phosphorylation. So energy 2 ATPs will not form here, but we will get 2,3-bisphosphoglycerate formation. So this is one mutase and one phosphatase. It can bypass the first substrate level phosphorylation. Of course, we can get 2,3. The pathway involves no net yield of ATP from glycolysis. Normally, glycolysis is giving 2 ATPs. If the glucose has to enter this pathway, these 2 ATPs will not be produced. Only the last pyruvate kinase 2 ATP are produced, which already we have used to, so there is no net production of. But for an important compound like 2,3-bisphosphoglycerate, there is also important. So we can forego the production of ATP to get the 2,3-bisphosphoglycerate, which binds to hemoglobin and decreasing affinity of oxygen, making oxygen more readily available to the tissues. Isn't it? You might be remembering that fetal hemoglobin has got a high affinity than adult hemoglobin. Why? because 2,3-bisphosphoglycerate cannot bind to fetal hemoglobin. It can easily bind to adult hemoglobin. Fetal hemoglobin is 2 alpha, 2 gamma, and adult hemoglobin has got 2 alpha, 2 beta. It gets bound to the beta subunits 2 beta chains, decreasing, so establishing more salt bridges. So more taut form. Taut form means oxygen affinity is less. So adult hemoglobin has got less affinity, whereas it cannot bind to the fetal hemoglobin 2,3-bisphosphoglycerate because there is beta gamma chain is not there, gamma chain is there. It cannot bind to the gamma chain. So in comparison to adult hemoglobin, fetal hemoglobin is relatively less taut or relaxed form. So relaxed means more affinity for oxygen. Okay. So now comes the pyruvate form in the glycolytic pathway. What are the various fate of pyruvate? It is on reduction if anoxia or oxygen or RBC inside RBC lactate will be produced. It can go for alanine formation, glucose formation. We'll see transamination by alanine and glucose by gluconeogenesis. In the mitochondria, acetyl-CoA, it can form acetyl-CoA for oxidation by oxidative decarboxylation, and it can also form oxaloacetate by simple carboxylation, pyruvate carboxylase. And this carboxylation, it forms oxaloacetate. So these are the various fates of pyruvate in the cytoplasm in the mitochondria. And pyruvate is coming from mostly glucose glycolytic pathway. Pyruvate also can come from amino acid like alanine can give pyruvate by transamination reaction. Pyruvate also can come from glycerol part of the fatty acids, glycerol part of the fat, triglycerol. So this is now in this sequence of complete oxidation of glucose in the glycolytic pathway, it has come till pyruvate formation. Then pyruvate will form acetyl-CoA, oxidation of pyruvate to acetyl-CoA, and acetyl-CoA can then only acetyl-CoA can enter into Krebs cycle. So the oxidation of pyruvate to acetyl-CoA, this is the link reaction, and it is occurs in the mitochondria by the enzyme pyruvate dehydrogenase complex. This is oxidative decarboxylation. It is an irreversible reaction. Oxidation of pyruvate to acetyl-CoA. Pyruvate is transported into the mitochondria by a proton sympater. Along with the proton, it will move. It undergoes oxidative decarboxylation to produce acetyl-CoA, catalyzed by multi-enzyme complex, pyruvate dehydrogenase complex, present in the inner mitochondrial membrane. Inhibition of pyruvate metabolism may lead to lactic acidosis, like either deficiency of the enzyme pyruvate dehydrogenase complex will pyruvate will not be oxidized to acetyl-CoA, so it will be accumulated. It can lead to lactic acid formation, or inhibitors like arsenate, I was telling, pentavalent and trivalent. Pentavalent we have seen in the compete with the PI in the glycerol 3-phosphate dehydrogenase reaction. The trivalent form inhibits the pyruvate dehydrogenase. We'll see. Then the salient features are substrate is pyruvate, product is acetyl-CoA, all tissues, compartment, mitochondria, and nature is catabolic. So this is a multi-enzyme complex and associated with the inner mitochondrial membrane and analogous to alpha-ketoglutarate dehydrogenase present in the cyclic TCA cycle. It is three enzymes are there. Three catalytic enzymes: pyruvate dehydrogenase itself, then dihydrolipoyl transacetylase, and dihydrolipoyl dehydrogenase. So pyruvate gets oxidized pyruvates with the help of pyruvate dehydrogenase. First step is decarboxylated and the hydroxyethyl parts gets attached to the thiamine TDP, thiamine diphosphate part of the coenzyme part of the pyruvate dehydrogenase complex. First, pyruvate gets decarboxylated, the hydroxyethyl part gets attached to the TDP. Then hydroxyethyl part is transported to the oxidized lipoamide part in the form of acetyl lipoamide of the dihydrolipoyl transacetylase. It has got the cofactor lipoic oxidized lipoamide. Now, this acetyl pyruvate carbon dioxide released, hydroxyethyl part is carried by TDP, which is transferred to the oxidized lipoamide part, opens the ring, acetyl lipoamide of the dihydrotransacetylase. Now this enzyme transfers the acetyl part and with the help of CoA molecule, coenzyme A, it forms acetyl CoA and dihydrolipoamide is formed. This is the reduced form, but originally that it is oxidized form. So this reduced dihydrolipoamide has to be oxidized by the enzyme dihydrolipoyl dehydrogenase, requiring FAD. This enzyme contains FAD, gets converted to FADH2. Now this to regenerate the FAD again, NAD is required, which gets converted to NADH plus H plus. NADH plus H plus. So we have seen pyruvate, it is a multi-enzyme complex, three catalytic enzymes, pyruvate dehydrogenase complex, pyruvate dehydrogenase, dihydrolipoyl transacetylase, and dihydrolipoyl dehydrogenase. Each of them has got three enzymes, three coenzymes. Pyruvate has got TDP, thymine, B1, thymine diphosphate. Dihydrolipoyl transacetylase has got oxidized lipoamide, and dihydrolipoyl dehydrogenase has got bound FAD. So two more coenzymes. So we have got TPP, FAD, and lipoic acid. Then we need two more coenzyme A and NAD are required. These are not in a bound form, but they are required to form acetyl CoA. So from pyruvate plus coenzyme A plus NAD, we'll get acetyl CoA plus carbon dioxide plus NADH plus H plus. So there are 5 coenzymes will be required, 3 catalytic enzymes, and finally it will form acetyl CoA. So this is one of the important link reaction between glycolysis and TCA cycle, where glucose being converted to pyruvate enters into mitochondria. There it converted to acetyl CoA. It is a decarboxylation, carbon dioxide is released, and 3 carbon moiety is converted to 2 carbon moiety, acetyl CoA. Now, this multi-enzyme complex has the advantage of efficient catalytic power because directly the substrate from one enzyme, the product of one enzyme is directly given to the active site of the second enzyme, which gets product, and the product of the second enzyme is directly transferred to the active site of the third enzyme, thereby highly efficient catalytic process occurs in this multi-enzyme complex. Enzyme efficiency increases. Now, how it is regulated? Any enzyme activity, it is regulated by complex by both allosterically and covalent modification. We know that enzymes can be regulated by allosterically or covalent modification. So this shows how pyruvate dehydrogenase is allosterically inhibited by the product. Acetyl-CoA is the product, it can inhibit the own enzyme pyruvate dehydrogenase complex. And NADH are also produced, so NADH also inhibit. So when an excess of acetyl-CoA is there or excess of NADH is there, pyruvate need not form acetyl-CoA. So it inhibits the enzyme, its own enzyme, feedback inhibition type of reaction, PDH, pyruvate dehydrogenase complex. Also, it is regulated covalent, that means phosphorylation, dephosphorylation. So in fact, these enzymes consist of 3 catalytic enzymes and 2 regulatory enzymes, PDH kinase and PDH phosphatase also. It is a 5 enzyme, 5 coenzyme, 3 catalytic enzyme, and PDH kinase is another enzyme, regulatory enzyme, and PDH pyruvate dehydrogenase complex phosphatase is another enzyme complex enzyme. So it is a 5 enzymes, one can say, and this kinase means it phosphorylates covalent the serine or threonine residue of the enzyme gets phosphorylated, and phosphorylated form is inactive, and phosphatase dephosphorylates removes the pi, so dephosphorylated form is the active form. So this PDH kinase is regulated positively by energy status of the cell. If acetyl-CoA to CoA means high energy, NADH to NAD high energy, ATP to ADP high energy. More ATP or more NADH acetyl-CoA is there, then it will stimulate the PDH kinase. So there is no more requirement of energy production. So PDH kinase gets activated, it will phosphorylate the pyruvate dehydrogenase complex, thereby the whole complex becomes inactive. So phosphorylation makes the covalent modification makes it inactive. And this phosphatase gets activated whenever there is calcium increase in calcium, like muscle contraction is there, more calcium is there, so phosphatase will be activated. More energy should be required, so this phosphorylated form gets converted to dephosphorylated form. It becomes more active. Now more pyruvate will form acetyl-CoA enters TC cycle, so more TC cycle, more ATP will be produced. Insulin also activates the PDH phosphatase. Insulin in adipose tissue, it is helping to activate the PDH phosphatase, so that more of acetyl-CoA will be formed. Insulin means blood glucose is adequate, so insulin is also more, and more glucose, more insulin, glucose can this glucose can be converted to fatty acids and stored in the form of triacylglycerol. So insulin helps in the formation of acetyl-CoA, which is the basic molecule for fatty acid synthesis. And this fatty acid synthesis, acetyl-CoA will be more by PDH more acetyl-CoA will be formed, and acetyl-CoA can be stored in the form of triacylglycerol in the adipose tissue. And vice versa occurs whenever there is energy level is low, glucagon becomes more active and it will lipolysis in the adipose tissue. Insulin produces synthesis of triacylglycerol and glucagon will help in lipolysis, release of fatty acids, glycerol, lipolysis and release of fatty acids. Now, so we'll go to TCA cycle. The link reaction, we have seen how pyruvate formed in the glycolysis enters the mitochondria and gets converted to acetyl-CoA. Acetyl-CoA is the main substrate which can enter the Krebs cycle or TCA cycle. So what is the TCA cycle? It is the sequence of mitochondrial reactions in the mitochondria that oxidize acetyl moiety of acetyl-CoA and reduces coenzymes. So acetyl-CoA gets oxidized, acetyl moiety gets oxidized, release of carbon dioxide there, and during that process, reduced coenzymes are produced. NAD or FADH2 are produced, which is coupled to, which donate the electron to sp2 chain and which is coupled to ATP production. So it is a series of biochemical reactions in which acetyl portion of acetyl-CoA oxidized to carbon dioxide and the reduced coenzymes FADH2 and NADH are produced. So this in turn are linked to ATP production. So they donate their electron to sp2 chain and ATP production. The Krebs cycle is what is known as amphibolic, that is both catabolic and anabolic building molecules. And it is a series of chemical reactions which were all aerobic organisms to generate energy through the oxidation of acetate derived from carbohydrate, fat, and protein into carbon. This is the final common pathway, they say. From carbohydrate, we are getting from fats, fatty acids, and acetyl-CoA. From proteins, also acetyl-CoA or any intermediate of TCA cycle that will again form acetyl-CoA into form carbon dioxide. So Krebs cycle is the final common pathway of all the metabolism. Now it is a cyclical pathway. That means the product, this one substrate is regenerated at the end of the cycle. There are two substrates, so one substrate gets regenerated and the one substrate gets consumed. So in the first step, we'll see acetyl-CoA has been formed by pyruvate diaryl complex. So it will enter into the TCA cycle by combining with oxaloacetate in the presence of citrate synthase. And the coenzyme A is released, so will form citrate molecule. It is tricarboxylic acid. So the other name is TCA cycle, tricarboxylic acid cycle. So citrate with the help of aconitase, the intermediate is cis-aconitate, isocitrate is isomer of citrate is isocitrate will be formed in the second step. Now isocitrate can undergo dehydrogenation, oxidative dehydrogenation, or oxidative decarboxylation. Dehydrogenation means oxidation, so oxidative decarboxylation. So till 4 carbon of oxaloacetate and 2 carbon of acetyl-CoA, 6 carbon of citrate. This fluoroacetate is an inhibitor of the aconitase which converts citrate to isocitrate. Fluorocitryl CoA will inhibit the citrate synthesis. Fluoro inhibits the aconitase. Okay, now this isocitrate dehydrogenase, this is NAD dependent. NADH is produced. This is the first step of NADH production, because main important is acetyl CoA, two carbon dioxide will be, two carbon has been added, two carbon dioxide will be released. During that process, the coenzymes are reduced, which is the source of energy, which will donate their electron to regenerate NAD and to electron transport chain in the mitochondria, and it will help in the production of ATP, because oxidation and phosphorylation are coupled to each other. So we produce energy. So this is the first step, NAD gets NADH. And the intermediate is again oxalosuccinate, and isocitrate dehydrogenase releases decarboxylase, the carbon dioxide, to form alpha ketoglutarate. And this alpha ketoglutarate is acted upon another deoxidative decarboxylation. Here there are three isoenzymes are associated dehydrogenase. One is NAD specific, two are NADP specific. They are present in the NAD specific is present in the mitochondria, and NADP specific are two, which are present in both in cytosol as well as mitochondria. But the TCA cycle is NAD specific. Isocitrate dehydrogenase involved in the TCA cycle, it uses the NAD to produce NADH. So this is the first oxidative decarbonation. This is alpha ketoglutarate is the second oxidative decarboxylation, and it is very much similar to your pyruvate dehydrogenase complex. This is alpha ketoglutarate dehydrogenase complex. Same three catalytic enzymes, 5 coenzymes. Ultimately, coenzyme A is released. Coenzyme A is used. NAD is used. NADH will be formed. Carbon dioxide is released. There it was pyruvate to acetyl CoA. Here alpha ketoglutarate to succinyl CoA, and the enzyme is very much similar, alpha ketoglutarate dehydrogenase complex. Now succinyl CoA, and this step is inhibited by arsenite. Arsenite, as I was telling you, this it can inhibit the arsenite. The trivalent form can inhibit the lipoic acid form of the PDH and pyruvate dehydrogenase complex and alpha ketoglutarate dehydrogenase complex. They can bind to the lipoic, reduced lipoic acid SH group. They will not be oxidized, so they will inhibit the enzyme. Then comes the succinyl CoA gets converted to succinate. This is another step of substrate level phosphorylation. We had seen two steps of substrate level phosphorylation in glycolytic pathway. One is there in the mitochondria, succinate thiokinase. Here again, ATP is formed at the level of substrate without the involvement of the electron transport chain. ADP PI is converted to ATP, coenzyme A is released, and succinate is formed. Here again, there are two isoenzymes. One succinate, they can use GTP. GTP and PI is converted to GTP. It can either ATP or GTP. Two isoenzymes are there. So the neoglucogenogenic tissues, like the tissues where neoglucogenesis occurs, primarily liver and kidney, they also contain as enzyme GTP. So GDP and PI will form GTP, and this GTP will be linked to neoglucogenesis enzyme phosphoryl pyruvate carboxykinase, which requires GTP. We'll see in the gluconeogenesis. So in the gluconeogenic tissues, succinate thiokinase can use. It has both the S enzymes, liver and kidney, has got both ATP is formed or GTP will be formed. Now comes the succinate form has been formed. Succinate can be converted to fumarate by enzyme succinate dehydrogenase. It is the only enzyme which is membrane bound. Succinate dehydrogenase is membrane bound. It can directly the FAD gets from FADH, and FADH2 can directly donate their electron to the electron transport chain. The coenzyme Q of the electron transport. This is succinate dehydrogenase in the complex 2 of the various complex 1, 2, 3 of electron transport chain. So this succinate, it has got your iron sulfur centers also, the succinate complex, so it can donate directly electron to the coenzyme Q of the electron transport chain. So here this is a membrane bound component. Other enzymes are probably in the matrix of the mitochondria, but this is a membrane bound complex 2 of the ETC. So FAD gets gone to FADH2, fumarate is formed, succinate to fumarate. Malonate is a competitive inhibitor. Malonate is a competitor of the succinate dehydrogenase. In fact, during the discovery of TCA cycle, Krebs had used malonate to see what are the inhibitor of the which products are accumulating and which are depleting. So with various inhibitors and all this, he could decipher the Krebs cycle or TCA cycle. So which reaction comes first, what is the substrate product, and like that, that could be deciphered by the use of various inhibitors. One of them is malonate. Malonate can inhibit, competitive inhibitor of succinate dehydrogenase, inhibits succinate dehydrogenase, the succinate gets accumulated. Fumarate will not be formed. Now fumarate has formed, and in the mitochondria, now with the help of fumarase, addition of water molecule, it will form malate, L-malate. L-malate. It is a symmetric molecule, but fumarase enzyme acts on symmetric molecules also acts on your enzymes asymmetrically, and only one isomer will be formed. L-malate is always formed. That is called 3-point attachment on the enzyme surface molecule. Like from pyruvate, by the help of lactate dehydrogenase, L-malate is always formed. In the during conversion of pyruvate to lactate by lactate dehydrogenase, always will form L-lactate. Whereas if you chemically reduce in a laboratory, in the chemical laboratory, you will reduce pyruvate, 50% will form L-lactate, 50% will D-lactate. But in the body, in the enzyme, it is always L-lactate. That means the symmetric pyruvate molecule can bind in a particular orientation to the enzyme, that it can bind asymmetrically, and always one form of product is formed. That is called 3-point attachment on the surface of enzyme molecule. Now similarly here also fumarate binds asymmetrically, and L-malate is always produced. Then malate dehydrogenase will act on malate, and NAD and is used, NADH will be formed to regenerate oxaloacetate. So in fact, we have seen acetyl-CoA has been used. CoA release 2 carbon are released in the form of 2 carbon dioxide, and NAD 3 NAD associated dehydrogenase, alpha ketogenic dehydrogenase, and malate dehydrogenase. 3 NAD has been converted to NADH, and 1 FAD has been converted to FADH2. Now all this reduced coenzymes will donate the electron, gets reoxidized by donating the electron to ETC. So this we have already discussed, acetyl-CoA formation of citrate, citrate synthase, citrate CoA molecule will be released and citrate will be formed, isocitrate formation of isocitrate, then oxidation of isocitrate and formation of carbon dioxide, then oxidation of alpha ketone formation of carbon dioxide, which is very much similar to pyruvate complex. Then succinyl CoA to linked to phosphorylation of GDP, substrate level phosphorylation. Step 6 is succinate is dehydrogenase. This is the succinate thiokinase, or this is the succinate dehydrogenase, which is inhibited by myelinate and bound to inner mitochondrial membrane. FAD is called FADH2. Then hydration of fumarate to produce L isomers, and finally oxidation of malate to oxaloacetate. Fourth redox reaction, NAD is converted to NADH. So this product reaction oxaloacetate is then so oxaloacetate is regenerated. Oxalate was used, again it has been regenerated. So a small amount of oxalate can oxidize a large amount of acetyl-CoA in the TCA cycle. So this is the a catalytic like role of oxaloacetate. If you add in a mitochondrial preparation small amount of oxaloacetate, it will go on consuming or oxidizing more and more acetyl-CoA, because oxaloacetate will not finish, it can be regenerated. So summary of Krebs cycle is 1 ton of Krebs cycle generates 2 carbon dioxide molecules, 3 NADH molecule, 1 FADH molecule, 1 ATP or GTP at the substrate level. Total 2, if 1 glucose 2 carbons will produce, so 4 carbon dioxide, 2 pyruvate and 2 acetyl-CoA will come. So total 4 carbon dioxide, 6 NADH, 2 FADH2 and 2 substrate level phosphorylation. Now the energetics, how much energy will complete oxidation of 1 molecule of glucose. We'll see here. ATP formation in the catabolism of glucose. In the glycolytic step, we have seen glycerol 3 phosphorydehydrogenase 2 NADH will be there, which will give 5 ATP after being transported into mitochondria. Again, here it could be 3 or it could be 5, because there are 2 shuttles which carry reducing equivalent from NADH from cytosol to mitochondria. One is glycerophosphate shuttle and another is malate shuttle. If it carried by glycerophosphate shuttle, then FADH2 will be produced, 3 ATP will be produced. If it is through malate shuttle, then it will be 5 ATP will be produced. Then this is substrate level phosphorylation, 2 and 2, so total 7 to 9 molecules will be formed. 2 are consumed, so net 5 to 7. Then in the TCA cycle, cyclic respiratory chain, 2 NADH, 5 associated pyruvate dehydrogenase, then associated dehydrogenase 5, then alpha dehydrogenase 5, succinate thiokinase substrate level 2, Succinate dehydrogenase 2, FADS2. So it will 3 mol, 1.5 each, 3. Then malate dehydrogenase, respiratory chain oxidation of 2 NADH lead to 5. So it will be net 25. So 5 to 7 here. This is 25. So 32 molecules, depending on which shuttle you have been used, and total 2 molecules have been used. Net 32. So 25 and 7, 32. And here, of course, we have already taken care of the 2 ATP reaction, which have already used that. Okay, so 7, 32, it could be 32, 32, depending upon which cycle, which shuttle it is going. And in the aerobic condition, only 2 ATP. So it is 15 to 16 times more oxygen, more ATP is produced by in the presence of oxygen by complete oxidation of glucose in aerobic glycolysis, followed by TCA cycle and respiratory chain. Okay, so in the presence of oxygen, a large amount of, so in that condition, for the same amount of energy, we will request less amount of glucose which is required, whereas in the anaerobic condition, for the same amount of energy, we require large amount of glucose to be oxidized. So now coming to the other role of TCA cycle. So this is, we have seen the primarily the oxidation part, how they are oxidized, the acetyl-CoA moiety is oxidized by releasing as 2 carbons release carbon dioxide, and the reducing equivalents are captured by the oxidized coenzyme to reduced coenzyme, which ultimately donate the electrons, reoxidized by donating the electron to ETC, and which is coupled to ATP. Now the citric acid cycle plays a pivotal role in metabolism. Pivotal role in metabolism, of course, it is the final common pathway for all carbohydrate, lipid, and protein. Also, it is a major pathway for interconversion of metabolites arising from transamination and deamination of amino acids. We have seen by transamination and deamination how glutamate can be converted to alpha glutarate, or alanine can be converted to pyruvate, acetyl-CoA, then etc. So it provides a substrate for amino acid synthesis by transamination. As we say, it is a amphibolic role. It has a role in the synthetic processes also. So many amino acids can be synthesized by transamination from the intermediates of TCA cycle. Like alpha ketoglutarate can form glutamate, oxaloacetate can form aspartate, and another synthetic reaction is succinyl-CoA, which was formed, that can go for heme biosynthesis. Succinyl-CoA glycine is the starting material for heme biosynthesis. So all these are anabolic reactions, or it will help in the anabolic reaction. Also provides substrate for gluconeogenesis and fatty acid synthesis. Also, they are important role in gluconeogenesis and fatty acid synthesis. We'll see in the gluconeogenesis chapter and fatty acid synthesis how. In transamination, and this is they are telling, just showing, you just need not remember all this, just see how the various carbon skeleton of the enzymes, the amino acids, they are amino acid metabolism. There are two parts. One is amino group metabolism to urea and the carbon skeleton part. Amino group is converted to urea and excreted from the body, whereas carbon skeleton can be used either for glucose for energy purpose. Carbon skeleton of the amino acids are used for energy purpose by various tissues, or they are good substrate for neoglucogenesis. When a blood glucose level is low, amino acids also can give by nucleophilic pathway they can generate glucose. So these are the fate of the carbon skeleton of various amino acids. They will produce either pyruvate. All these carbon skeleton will produce pyruvate. Tryptophan for alanine and pyruvate. Then this tyrosine phenylalanine will form fumarate. Isolation they will form succinyl CoA. Histidine, proline, glutamine, arginine they will form glutamate and alpha group. So this is transamination, aspartate and oxaloacetate. This is alanine pyruvate transamination. So involvement of TCA cycle in transamination and gluconeogenesis. Gluconeogenesis, we can see that any substances which produce either any of the intermediates of TCA cycle, they can go for gluconeogenesis. They will form succinyl CoA, pyrufumarate, oxaloacetate. From oxaloacetate, this pyruvate is coming from phosphonyl pyruvate to pyruvate. Pyruvate can form oxaloacetate, phosphonyl pyruvate, because pyruvate kinase is irreversible step. So that to overcome pyruvate kinase, pyruvate has to form oxaloacetate, then phosphoryl pyruvate, then reverse reaction of glycolysis, and it will go to glucose formation. We'll discuss in detail later on. So this is the we'll see how TCA cycle plays an important role in the transamination reaction, transamination for generation of amino acids or metabolism of amino acids, and also neoglucogenesis, where oxaloacetate gets converted to phosphonyl pyruvate and glucose. TCA cycle has got a important role in the fatty acid synthesis also. And this is fatty acid synthesis is takes place whenever there is adequate energy. That means fat state, not in starvation state. Synthesis will not occur in starvation state. So whenever body energy is adequate, cells adequate energy, they can excess of glucose can go for fatty acid synthesis. So what is the role of TCA cycle in fatty acid synthesis? Glucose glycolysis, the pyruvate is formed that enters into mitochondria, because fatty acid synthesis acetyl CoA, pyruvate will form acetyl CoA in the mitochondria, pyruvate deadenine complex, and this acetyl CoA is the starting material for fatty acid synthesis in the cytosol. So acetyl CoA is always formed in the, whether it is from pyruvate to acetyl CoA or by beta oxidation from long chain fatty acids to acetyl CoA in the, that occurs also in the mitochondria. So acetyl CoA is always formed in the mitochondria, or fatty acid synthesis always occurs in the cytosol. Fatty acid synthesis occurs in the cytosol. So it has to come out of the mitochondria, and that is done with the help of citrate. acetyl-CoA gets first formed citrate with oxaloacetate. Citrate comes out, then again citrate lies acetyl-CoA and oxaloacetate. Acetyl-CoA to come out of mitochondria requires oxaloacetate, forms citrate, comes out as citrate. Again, citrate is broken down to acetyl-CoA and oxaloacetate in the cytosols by enzyme citrate lyase. And oxaloacetate can reform malate, and malate is converted to pyruvate by malic enzyme, decarboxylation reaction, and pyruvate can enter into the mitochondria where it can form pyruvate carboxylase to oxaloacetate. So oxaloacetate can again take one more acetyl-CoA and come out and release the acetyl-CoA in the cytosol, which can go for fatty acid synthesis. So TCA cycle has got a role in transport of acetyl-CoA, the building material of fatty acid biosynthesis, into the cytosol. Then something about the regulation of TCA cycle. Before the regulation of TCA cycle, I want to also tell something about the anaphylactic reactions of TCA cycle. Anaphylactic reactions are those reactions which, because TCA cycle intermediates are involved in synthetic pathway also, so there is chance of likelihood of intermediates can be depleted by various synthetic processes. So to maintain adequate amount of TCA cycle intermediates, there are some reactions which replenish the intermediates. So what are the reactions? The common anaphylactic reaction is the pyruvate carboxylase, where pyruvate can form oxaloacetate by carboxylation. 3 carbon, 1 carbon will come. So oxaloacetate. This is one of the reaction of neoglucogenesis also, and it is a anaphylactic reaction. Whenever oxaloacetate level falls, pyruvate can be carboxylated to form oxaloacetate. So this is one of the various transamination reactions. They can also replenish the oxaloacetate. Here from aspartate oxaloacetate, from glutamate to alpha glutarate, all these transamination reactions also they can replenish the intermediates of TCA cycle. So, or there is glutamate dehydrogenase also some gives rise to alpha ketoglutarate, glutamate transaminase, and there is another reaction, glutamate dehydrogenase, which can also give rise to alpha ketoglutarate. So all these are anaphylactic reactions which replenish the depleting TCA cycle intermediates. Now something about regulation of TCA cycle intermediate, regulation of citric acid cycle. In most tissues, respiratory control by the respiratory chain and oxidative phosphorylation regulate TCA cycle activity. We have seen in the biological oxidation how the rate of respiration in the rate of ATP formation in the your electron transport chain is regulated. There are various there is respiratory control. Various states are there. State 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 something. In the resting state, that is state 4, where it is the rate is dependent on availability of ADP only. Because everything is linked together. So if ADP is not there, ADP is high, then it will stimulate electron flow. That means when you spend energy, when ATP is broken to ADP, ATP has to reconvert to ATP, so ATP stimulates oxidative phosphorylation. That means that is dependent on your respiratory chain will start by taking electron from the NADH oxidized reduced coenzymes NADH or FADH2. So which is coming mainly the citric acid cycle. So citric acid cycle is regulated by its your supply of NAD, because normally NAD is converted to NADH. As I was telling, NAD or FAD, they are in small amounts. So after few cycles of NAD, TCA cycles, all the NAD or FAD will become to FADH2, and that will donate the electron to regenerate NAD and FADH2 to ETC electron transport chain. But electron transport chain will be tightly coupled to ATP formation. So ATP formation requires ADP. So unless ADP is not there, ATP will not be formed. All are in ATP form, so there will be no ADP. So ADP is not there, so ATP will not form. So electron transport will not function. So NAD cannot be regenerated from NADH. So the common theory behind the regulation of TCA cycle is to supply energy. If energy adequate in the cell, ATP is adequate, then that is most of the coenzymes are in the NADH form. So NAD is not there or FAD is not there, so it will be decreased. But if ATP is utilized and ATP level is low, ADP is high, then it will promote regeneration of NAD from NADH, thereby TCA cycle will be activated. TCA is ultimately dependent on the supply of NADH. The NAD supply of NAD. NAD is not getting converted to NADH or FADH2, so it has to be regenerated, and that is dependent on the electron by donating the electron to the electron transport chain, which is tightly coupled to ATP synthesis, phosphorylation. So it is if all are in ATP form, ADP is not there. When ATP is broken down to ADP, then only ATP synthesis can take place and electron transport will move in the electron will be taken up from NADH to regenerate NAD, which will stimulate TCA cycle. In addition, individual enzymes or cycles are regulated. The main site regulation are non-equilibrium reactions like pyruvate dehydrogenase, citrate dehydrogenase, citrate synthase, isocitrate dehydrogenase, and alpha-ketoglucosidehydrogenase. The dehydrogenases are activated by calcium, which increases in concentration when there is increased energy demand, like muscle contraction, and they are activated, and more calcium, so they will activate the dehydrogenase. In the tissue such as brain, which is largely dependent on carbohydrate to supply acetyl-CoA, they are dependent on citric acid may be occur at pyruvate dehydrogenase complex, regulation at the pyruvate dehydrogenase complex, which is dependent on ATP ADP and NADH-NAD ratio. As we have seen, they will stimulate the phosphatase enzyme, pyruvate dehydrogenase phosphatase, inhibit the enzyme if it is more. If it is less, that will be active pyruvate complex. The allosteric inhibition of citrate synthesis ATP and long chain fatty acids also occurs. Then isocitrate dehydrogenase is regulated by ADP and counter regulated by ATP and ADP. ADP stimulates and NADP and inhibit the isocitrate dehydrogenase. Alpha-ketoglucosidehydrogenase complex is regulated the same way as pyruvate dehydrogenase complex. And succinate dehydrogenase is inhibited by oxaloacetate. SD and the ability of oxaloacetate is controlled by malate dehydrogenase dependent on NADH-NAD ratio. Okay, so this is the regulation of And what happens in hyperammonemia? In hyperammonemia, that means when ammonia level in the blood increases. That is in case of liver failure, acute hepatitis or cirrhosis liver is not functioning. Liver main work is to urea cycle, take ammonia to form urea. So when liver failure is there, your ammonia will not form urea and hyperammonemia will occur. So, and brain is more sensitive to ammonia because and the symptoms it can mental your blunting of you will be there could be hepatic, ultimately it can lead to hepatic coma also, blurring of vision, then slurring of speech and other things. Symptoms are there, central nervous system symptoms are there, finally leading to coma. So brain is more affected in coma, in hyperammonemia. And what is the mechanism? Because ammonia is transported from brain or other tissues in the form of glutamate and glutamine. So they use alpha by the help. When ammonia level is high, it should all the ammonia metabolize different tissues has to come to liver for urea synthesis, because liver is the only organ where urea is synthesized. So ammonia from various tissues has to be transported to liver. That is done by mostly in the form of glutamine and glutamate. That means alpha ketoglutarate can take up one ammonia to form glutamate. Glutamate can take up one more ammonia molecule to form glutamine. So in the form of glutamate and glutamine, it can be transported. So when ammonia level is high, more and more alpha ketoglutarate is being used. So in the brain, alpha ketoglutarate level depletes. So TCA cycle will be hampered. So energy will not be produced, and brain requires a high amount of energy. So that's why. And secondly, they say high amount of ammonia also inhibits alpha ketoglutarate dehydrogenase enzyme. High, like inhibitors we have seen. So ammonia level also inhibits your alpha ketoglutarate dehydrogenase complex. So these two things depletes the brain of the ATP formation. It inhibits the ATP formation, because TCA cycle is not formed, is not working, means ATP will not be formed, energy will not be formed. So it can lead to various CNS symptoms, finally leading to hepatic coma, hepatic failure, hyperammonemia, loss of depletion of the TCA cycle intermediates like alpha ketoglutarate because of formation of glutamine and glutamate, leading, and also inhibition of alpha ketoglutarate complex by ammonia leads to decreased ATP synthesis in the brain, leading to coma. So let us stop here today. Today we have completed because last time there was some problem with your technical problem was there, it could not be started in time. So last time digestion absorption mostly, and this time we have finished glycolysis and TCA cycle. So any doubt you can clarify over by writing your online only, because we can't have a direct tutorial class. So you can post your questions, queries, and we'll try to answer them. Thank you.